My name's Emily Carter. On Christmas Eve, my parents opened the huge front door of our mansion in Hillsborough and just tossed my suitcase out onto the icy steps. My younger sister Jessica was standing right there behind them with her arms crossed, smirking like she'd just hit the jackpot. "Let's see how you make it now, big sis," she sneered. I had to drag my suitcase through this thick, icy fog. I had no money, no car, nothing. Just the long cashmere coat on my back keeping me from freezing. I just collapsed onto a snowy park bench inside our gated community, shaking so bad my teeth wouldn't stop chattering. That's when I saw her. An old woman barefoot. Her skin was turning purple and her silver hair was just whipping in the wind. She looked like she was already gone from the cold. I didn't even think about it. I just stood up and took off my only warm coat, and I wrapped it around her. She was trembling. She grabbed my frozen hands, looked me right in the eye, and whispered, "Kindness like yours is rarer than diamonds." Then she just walked off and disappeared into the fog. Exactly 1 hour later, 19 black luxury cars pulled up without a sound and blocked the whole street. The same woman got out of the car in the middle. Same face, but now she was wearing this long camel coat. Her hair was up in a fancy bun, and she had diamonds sparkling on her wrist. She walked right up to me, smiled, and just said one thing. "I've been watching you long enough to know exactly who you are. If you've ever been tossed aside by the people who should love you the most, drop 'been there' or your city in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Trust me, you've got to keep watching. What happens next is going to blow your mind." Earlier that day, I was still reeling from the layoff email I got at 10 a.m. It was another round of restructuring at the San Francisco ad agency I'd wasted 6 years of my life on. I just packed up my desk, put it in the passenger seat of my 12-year-old Honda Civic, and started driving south on the 101 to Hillsborough. It should have been a 32, maybe 47-minute drive if traffic was good. It wasn't. I'd already called my mom from the parking garage. I told her, "I just need to crash for a couple of weeks while I get my stuff together." She sounded busy, just said dinner was at 7 and hung up. When I pulled through the gates, the house looked like something out of a magazine. There was a 15-foot fir tree in the 2-story entrance. White orchids were everywhere, and caterers in black ties were setting the dining table for 20 people. My dad Robert was popping open a 2005 Dom Perignon like it was no big deal. And my mom Patricia was putting on a new pearl choker that I know she didn't have last month. And then there was Jessica, my 27-year-old sister. She was spinning around in this backless red silk dress, flashing a 6-carat diamond on her left hand. It looked like this was the moment she'd been waiting for her whole life. And Brandon, my ex-boyfriend of 4 years, was standing right behind her, his arm around her waist. I just dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and tried to fake a smile. "Hey everyone, rough day at work." That's all I managed to say. Jessica whipped around, her eyes all wide with fake concern. "Oh my God, again," she gasped loud enough for the caterers to hear. "Third job in 4 years, isn't it?" Then she looked right at my mom. Remember when she got canned from that startup in Soma for not being a team player? My mom's lips just got thinner. My dad didn't even look up from his champagne. I could feel my face getting hot. "It was a layoff," I said. "They cut the whole creative team." Jessica just waved her new ring in my face. "Brandon just closed his Series A, 28 million pre-money. Investors love him." Brandon shot me that same smug look he used when he dumped me 2 years ago, saying, "It's not you, it's timing." Dad finally put his glass down. "Emily, we need to talk." He didn't even tell me to sit. He never does when it's bad news. He told me right then he'd changed the family trust. All of it, $38 million, was now just in Jessica's name. No going back. Signed, notarized, and filed with the family lawyer in Palo Alto. He said I was 32, capable, and it was time I stood on my own 2 feet. Then Mom added, "We can't keep paying for a lifestyle that's going nowhere," as if my salary ever paid for their orchids or Jessica's designer shoes. I just stood there with my mouth open, trying to get my head around my parents legally cutting me off while I was in their front hall. Jessica pulled out her phone and started recording. "This is gold," she laughed. "Big sis comes home for Christmas totally broke. Say something for my followers." I stared at Dad. "Are you serious?" He finally met my eyes. "Cold? Final. You have 20 minutes to pack what you need. Security can let you back in for the rest tomorrow if you make an appointment." Mom wouldn't even look at me. She just pretended to fix a gold ornament on the tree. I walked upstairs like a zombie. The bedroom I'd had since I was 10 years old still had my high school swim team photos on the wall. I threw jeans, 2 sweaters, a laptop, and toiletries into the old Louis Vuitton bag that Jessica hadn't stolen yet. Everything else, books, yearbooks, my framed Stanford diploma, would have to wait. When I came back downstairs, Jessica was live on Instagram, talking like she was on a nature show. And here comes the runaway daughter with her one sad suitcase. "Any bets on how long till she's sleeping in that Civic?" Dad opened the front door himself. The fog was crazy thick. I couldn't even see the end of the driveway. The temperature was already dropping below freezing. I stepped outside. From behind me, Jessica yelled, "Sweet as poison. Merry Christmas, Emily." "Don't freeze." The door shut with a soft, expensive click. The alarm beeped 2 times as it turned on. And that was it. In under 30 minutes, I went from their daughter to a trespasser in the only home I'd ever known. I stood on the marble steps in the dark, with one suitcase at my feet, wearing the only warm thing I owned, that long cashmere coat. The second that heavy door closed, everything went dead quiet, except for the blood pounding in my ears. I stood on the empty street trying to catch my breath, but the air felt like daggers. I kept hearing Dad's flat voice, 38 million gone, with just one signature. And Mom wouldn't even look at me. I'm 32 years old, and in one conversation, I became a complete stranger to my own family. I just started walking because standing still felt worse. The wheels on my suitcase just rattled on the perfect pavement. It was the only sound for miles around. Every mansion I passed had warm, glowing windows, with laughter pouring out, and Christmas trees lit up behind their gates. Each one was just a reminder that I had nowhere to go. My fingers were already numb. I kept thinking, this can't be real. Any second now, Mom would open the door, call me back, and say it was all some cruel joke. But the alarm just stayed on. No footsteps, nothing. I don't know how long I walked. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. I ended up in this small park next to the old Episcopal church. There was just one iron bench, and the streetlight above it was actually on. I just collapsed onto it, dropped out my suitcase, and finally started to cry. I cried for that little girl who'd hide under the 15th tree waiting for Santa. For every birthday, Jessica got the better gift, and I had to just say thank you. I cried because I always thought if I just tried harder, did more, they would finally see me. But none of it mattered. They didn't throw me out because I failed. They threw me out because I wasn't Jessica. The tears were freezing on my face. I just hugged my knees and stared at the sidewalk. I had no idea how I'd make it through the night, much less my whole life. Then I heard it. The slow scraping sound of bare feet on the concrete. I looked up and saw this old woman just shuffling over to my bench. Her silver hair was a mess. Her shoulders were hunched up from the wind, and her skin looked almost see-through under the light. She stopped a couple feet from me, kind of swaying, and her voice was all scratchy from the cold. "Young lady, do you know if any shelters have a bed open tonight? I walked all the way from Burlingame. They're all full." I wiped my tears away real fast. "I'm sorry, I don't. I don't have a place to go either." She just looked at me for a long time. Her eyes were sharp even though she looked exhausted. Then she slowly sat down on the other end of the bench, leaving some space between us. We just sat there in silence until her breathing wasn't so ragged. I looked down and saw her feet were bare. They were already this awful purple color turning that scary white that means it's really bad. and something just broke inside me. Here was this woman who had it even worse than me tonight, and she was still being polite, asking instead of just taking. I felt so stupid for feeling sorry for myself. I didn't say a word. I just stood up, took off my coat, the only warm thing I had, and put it around her shoulders. She looked surprised at first. Then she just closed her eyes, letting the warmth sink in. Her thin, shaky hands reached up and pulled my coat tighter. She looked at me, and her pale blue eyes were filled with tears. "What's your name, child?" "Emily," I said, my voice cracking. She said my name back real soft, like it was important. "Thank you, Emily." Then she did something I will never forget. She took both of my freezing hands in hers. She squeezed them once and just looked right into my eyes for a long time. We didn't say anything, but it felt like we understood each other. We weren't strangers anymore. It felt like forever. But then she let go. She stood up, and she seemed steadier on her feet now. She gave me this tiny little smile. Then she walked off into the darkness before I even thought to say anything else. I sat back down on the bench all alone. I was colder than I've ever been. My teeth were chattering so hard, my jaw actually hurt. But for the first time, since they shut that door on me, the pain in my chest felt different. Lighter. It was like giving away. The last thing I owned somehow gave me something back I didn't even know I needed. The motel room stunk of old cigarettes and cheap cleaner. I'd been staring at the same job listings on my phone for hours. I was applying for anything that wasn't minimum wage when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't know. "Miss Emily Carter." The voice on the other end was sharp and professional, with a bit of an East Coast accent. "My name is Catherine Wells. I'm calling for Mrs. Victoria Blackwell. She wants to meet you right now." I actually laughed out loud. It sounded like a prank call. "Who is this really?" The line was quiet for a second. "Mrs. Blackwell will explain everything. A car's waiting for you outside room 112. I looked out the peephole. There were 19 identical black BMW 760s filling the cracked parking lot. It looked like a presidential motorcade. The back door of the first car just opened by itself. I grabbed my keys and walked out, still in the same jeans and hoodie I'd been wearing for 2 days. She was in the middle car waiting. It was the woman from the bench. Her hair was perfect now in a low bun. She had on a camel hair coat tied at the waist, and her red-bottomed heels were catching the sun. She looked 78, but also ageless. "Ethan," she said softly, like we were old friends. The door shut with a soft thud. A partition went up, and the car pulled away. 20 minutes later, we drove through gates to a 1920s Tudor mansion on a quiet street. It was in Atherton, hidden by redwood trees and a 10-foot hedge. I'd driven by this area 1,000 times and never even knew this street was here. Inside, it smelled like cedar and roses. A fire was crackling in a stone fireplace, so big you could stand inside it. Huge windows looked out over a private lake. She gestured for me to sit on a cream sofa that probably cost more than my car. A butler poured tea that neither of us touched. "My full name is Victoria Blackwell," she started. "My late husband founded Callaway Commercial Realty. When he passed away 12 years ago, I took the company private and turned the money into the Callaway Family Foundation. We own or back over 400 million square feet of office and retail space across the country. The foundation gives away around 120 million a year." I just stared at her. My brain just couldn't process those numbers. She leaned forward. "Every Christmas Eve for the last 25 years, I do the exact same thing. I leave my house dressed like I have nothing, no security team in sight, no wallet, no phone. I walk until I find someone who's still good when they think no one is watching. Most years I walk all night and go home disappointed. This year I found you." She explained that after I'd walked away from the bench, her security team in plain clothes and parked 2 blocks away had kept an eye on me for 48 hours. They watched me check into the motel with cash, eat food from a vending machine, apply for 50 jobs in one go, cry in the shower. and never once tried to find out who she was or brag about what I did. "You're the first person in 15 years," she said quietly, "who gave away the last thing they had to survive and didn't expect a single thing back. I need to know if that was a fluke or if that's who you really are." She stood up and walked to the window, clasping her hands behind her back. "I have no children, no heirs. When I'm gone, a board of strangers will decide where all my money goes. I don't want that. I want someone who understands what it's like to be thrown out on Christmas Eve, to be the one who decides how we help the next person who gets thrown out." She turned to look at me. "I'm offering you a room here, a salary, and a 5-year apprenticeship. If at the end of it you're the person I think you are, the foundation will be yours to run. It's not a gift, it's a responsibility." I opened my mouth, then closed it. I tried again. "Why me?" was all I could manage to say. Her eyes suddenly looked fierce. "Because I know exactly what it feels like to sit on a freezing bench with nowhere to go and still choose to be kind. My own father did this to me when I was 29. I promised myself I'd never let someone who made the right call get left behind." She held out her hand. "So, Emily Hayes, are you coming home with me?" I moved into the East Wing that next Monday. My new bedroom was bigger than my parents' whole first floor, with French doors that opened to a rose garden I could actually smell from my bed. Catherine O'Neill was tall, silver-haired, and all business. She handed me a leather binder as thick as a phone book and said, "Welcome to boot camp." That first month was brutal. We started with 6 a.m. runs around the lake with Victoria's old Navy SEAL trainer. At 7:30, it was breakfast meetings where I learned to read a 999 DPF tax return faster than most accountants. Then from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., I'd sit next to Victoria in board meetings at the foundation's offices on Sand Hill Road, taking notes while billionaires argued about results. My nights were spent digging through 20 years of grant files until my eyes burned. Victoria didn't want another rich kid just playing at being a philanthropist. She wanted someone who could turn money into changed lives without wasting a single cent. Her favorite line was, "We don't give fish. We don't even give fishing lessons. We buy the whole damn river and make sure everyone can eat forever." She got me into an executive program at Stanford's Business School for nonprofit leaders. Tuition was completely covered, no questions asked. 3 nights a week, I drove the 5 miles to campus and sat in classrooms with executives twice my age and learned how to measure actual results instead of just good intentions. Weekends were for site visits, women's shelters in East Oakland, after-school programs in East San Jose, and housing projects for vets in the Central Valley. I interviewed moms who'd escaped abuse with just their kids and a trash bag full of clothes. I listened to teenagers explain how one safe place to do homework kept them out of gangs. Every story just hit me hard. Back at the estate, Catherine drilled me on how to run things, how to handle a board member who goes rogue, how to say no to a senator's pet project without losing federal funds, how to fire someone we funded for stealing money without it turning into a PR nightmare. I rewrote the whole grant application process from scratch. I made the forms shorter, the decisions faster, and required site visits within 30 days of approval. Victoria read every draft and covered them in red ink, then made me defend every last change to the entire board. There were nights I passed out at the kitchen island, my face literally on a spreadsheet. There were mornings I just cried in the shower feeling like a total fake who would never be good enough. But every time I wanted to quit, I'd remember sitting on that freezing bench with nothing, and I'd just keep going. June came in hot and fast. One Thursday morning, Victoria texted me, "Library, now?" I walked in expecting another 12-hour work session. But she was in there alone with sunlight pouring through the stained glass windows holding a single folder. She didn't sit down. She just slid the folder across the mahogany table and stood there. Inside was a job contract on thick cream-colored paper. Title President and Chief Executive Officer, Blackwell Family Foundation. I'd report directly to the board, which meant her until she said so. The base salary, $195 million. 3% of the foundation's money, which is worth just under $4 billion right now. And starting year 3, you'll have the final say on all our programs. You just have to be responsible with the money. I just stared totally speechless. She finally sat down, folding her hands like she was praying. I didn't bring you here because you gave away a coat, she said. Anyone can be nice for 5 minutes when they think a camera's on them. I watched you for 5 straight months. I watched you fight for that domestic violence, shelter the one every banker in the room wanted to shut down because the numbers looked bad. I watched you sit on a folding chair in Oakland until midnight, just listening to a 17-year-old girl explain why she couldn't go home. I watched you rewrite a 70-page rule book just because one paragraph would have left transgender kids without a place to sleep. Her voice only cracked once. You have the mind I need and the heart I lost a long time ago. The foundation is yours to run. I'll stay on the board to keep the old men in line. But the day-to-day, that's all you now? I tried to say thank you, but no words came out. She just waved it off. Sign it before I change my mind and make you finish that boring tax course first. I laughed through my tears and signed. That night we opened a 1982 Chateau Margaux on the terrace. Just the two of us, watching the sun go down behind the redwoods. She raised her glass. To the girl who had every reason to be bitter, but chose to be kind anyway. I clinked my glass against hers. And to the woman who refused to let one good deed go unseen. We drank. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, in San Francisco. October smelled like wet leaves and money. I was in my corner office on the 22nd floor of 300 California Street, going over the final numbers for the second home campus, when Catherine knocked once and just walked in. Your sister and Brandon Whitaker are downstairs. No appointment? I felt my stomach sink, the same way it did in high school, when Jessica would borrow my clothes and bring them back ruined. I told security to send them up. They walked in looking like they'd rehearsed their little act on the elevator ride. Jessica was wearing a modest navy dress instead of her usual tight stuff, her hair in a low ponytail with almost no jewelry. Brandon had swapped his usual hoodie and sneakers for a navy suit that almost fit. They both had those tight smiles you see on people who've practiced apologies in the mirror. Jessica spoke first, her voice soft, her eyes shiny. Emily, I've been awful. We've been awful. I'm so sorry for everything. For Christmas Eve. For the things I posted, all of it. Brandon was nodding like his life depended on it. We're getting married next spring. We're trying to do things the right way this time. I just stayed behind my desk, hands folded, and waited. Jessica took a breath. Dad's in trouble. Some investments went south. He and Mom might lose the house. And Brandon's new company, AI for Elderly Care, it just needs $2 million to close the first round of funding. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death. I raised an eyebrow. Which part is life or death, Dad's mortgage or your company's valuation? Brandon forced a little laugh. Look, I get it. You're a big shot now. But family's family, right? $2 million is nothing to this foundation. I leaned back in my chair. Tell me what happened to that $38 million trust fund you took last December. Jessica's fake smile flickered. We diversified. Crypto NFTs. A few angel deals. Brandon's friends were pushing. It was supposed to be a 10 times return. Then FTX crashed. Luna went to zero. And pretty much all of it vanished. Brandon jumped in. It was a market downturn. It happens to everyone. Sequoia lost billions too. We just need a bridge loan. I opened the folder Catherine had put on my desk. It was full of screenshots, bank records, and a Forbes article called Hayes Family Blows Inheritance on Mimi Coins. I turned the folder so they could see it. 87%, gone in 11 months. I said calmly, you each bought a Lambo, put a down payment on a Miami condo, and paid influencers to pump up garbage coins. That's not a downturn. That's just lighting money on fire. Jessica's nice girl act cracked. Are you seriously going to sit there in your fancy office and let mom and dad become homeless? I buzzed the intercom. Security to floor 22, please. Brandon tried to play nice. Come on, Emily. $2 million is pocket change for you. You'll never even miss it. The door opened. 2 guards in suits stepped inside. I stood up. This foundation is for people who never had a safety net. Not for people who set theirs on fire and now want to take mine. You're not getting a dime. Not today. Not ever. Jessica's face went bright red. You ungrateful? She was already pulling out her phone, hitting record right as the guards took her by the elbows. By the time they made it to the lobby, 3 paparazzi vans and a local gossip blogger were waiting outside. Someone tipped them off. Jessica went into full-on drama mode, tears, a trembling lip yelling about her cold-hearted sister abandoning her own family. The video was on TikTok in less than 20 minutes. Caption: My billionaire sister won't even help our parents keep their house. #family first, hate that toxic sibling. It blew up. 10 million views in 6 hours. Then the internet did what it does. Old classmates started posting yearbook pictures of Jessica dumping yogurt on my backpack our senior year. Someone dug up an old Instagram live from Christmas Eve where she was laughing her head off while I carried my suitcase out of the house. A former nanny told a reporter how Jessica used to lock me out of the house in the rain as a joke. The comments went from sympathy to pure rage. Hayes' family exposed trended even higher than her original sob story video. Brandon's business pitch deck got leaked. Someone at the foundation accidentally forwarded it to a journalist. Turns out his AI startup was 90% hot air and 10% his cousin's garage project. His investors disappeared. Jessica's wedding planner quit on her. She hadn't even paid the deposit. Their engagement announcement got torn to shreds online. I never posted a single thing. By midnight, her video was flagged for bullying. The blogger posted a pathetic apology, and Jessica's follower count was cut in half. Catherine poured me some scotch when I got back to Atherton that night. Payback tastes so much better when you don't have to do a thing, she said. I raised my glass to the dark window. No, I said. It tastes like it's finally over. November brought a cold fog that just wouldn't burn off. The news hit that Tuesday. Pacific Crest Capital collapses $4.2 billion Ponzi scheme unravels. Dad had moved every last dollar into it, the mortgage refinance, the home equity line, even mom's jewelry. He did it 6 months ago because they guaranteed an 18% annual return that was supposed to get them back on their feet. The FBI raided their offices down in Newport Beach that same week. The founder was long gone on a yacht somewhere off Cabo. 30 days later, a foreclosure notice was taped to the front door of the Hillsborough mansion. Nobody bid at the auction. So the bank took the house. Robert, Patricia, and Jessica had to move into a 2-bedroom apartment over a nail salon on Story Road in East San Jose. Rent was $2,900 a month, and it was all they could afford. After filing for bankruptcy, Jessica had maxed out her credit cards at $247,000, mostly on handbags and stress shopping. After everything went south in October, bill collectors called all the time. Then they just showed up at the foundation one rainy Thursday morning without an appointment. Security called up to my office. I told them to send the 3 of them up. Dad looked 20 years older. His hair was completely white. His shoulders were hunched over, and he was in a sport coat that was 2 sizes too big. Mom had cut her hair short and used a cheap box dye, a brown that didn't look right. Jessica wasn't wearing any makeup. Her eyes were all puffy, and she was clutching a fake tote bag like her life depended on it. I met them in the small glass conference room on the 22nd floor. No water, no coffee. Catherine stood right outside the door. Dad spoke first, his voice cracking on every single word. Emily, you're my daughter. I know we hurt you. I know we don't deserve anything, but we've got nowhere else to go. The lease on our apartment is up in 6 weeks. We're going to be on the street. Mom just stared at the table, tearing a tissue into little pieces. Jessica finally looked at me, her eyes bloodshot. Please, just enough so we can get a fresh start. We'll sign anything you want. We'll never ask for anything again. I opened a thin black folder and put 3 business cards on the polished table. The first card was from Michael Thompson, a certified financial planner. He specializes in helping people recover after bankruptcy. The second card was for a financial class and debt management program. It's a free 8-week course the foundation pays for, held at the East San Jose Community Center. The third card was for the National Alliance on Mental Illness California Crisis Hotline and a local therapist who charges on a sliding scale. I pushed the cards toward them. This is what the Blackwell Foundation offers to strangers who lost everything when it wasn't their fault, I said, my voice totally flat. It's the same help we offer anyone who walks in here broke and scared. Dad's hand was shaking when he reached for the cards, but he stopped halfway. That's it. After 32 years, this is all you have. For your own father. I stood up. You had choices. You chose to rewrite the trust. You chose to chase after investments that sounded too good to be true. You chose to keep your mouth shut when Jessica tore me down just for fun. Those were your decisions, not mine. Mom finally looked me in the eye, tears streaming down her face. We were wrong. We're so sorry. It was the first time I'd met her gaze in almost 2 years. I believe that you're sorry now, I said. But sorry doesn't rebuild a life. Hard work does. Courage does. Taking responsibility does. Jessica started sobbing loud and ugly. You're enjoying this. You want to see us suffer. I walked to the door and held it open. No, I said. I'm just not going to pay for your suffering anymore. Security walked them out. My dad never looked back. As the elevator doors closed, Mom whispered, I'm sorry one last time. Jessica kept crying all the way down to the lobby. Catherine handed me a tissue I didn't even know I needed. They'll be okay, she said quietly. When people hit rock bottom, they either stay there or they start climbing. You just gave them the only ladder we're allowed to. I just nodded, watching the rain streak down the glass. For the first time, that ache in my chest was gone. It wasn't replaced with happiness, just space, room to breathe. The sky over East Palo Alto was just a flat, steely gray. There it was, second home, finally real. 4 stories of glass and redwood built around a courtyard where kids were already running around the planters. The plaza was packed with 3,000 people. The families who'd live here, donors, city council members, all the news networks. Even the governor was there for the ribbon cutting. I was backstage in a simple black suit, my heart pounding louder than the marching band. Jake gave my hand a quick squeeze. Victoria, looking perfect in a white coat, gave me a tiny nod from the front row. This was the project I'd poured my life into. 200 permanent apartments, a medical clinic right on site, a job training center, a preschool, a farm on the roof, and a rule that no one, and I mean no one, would ever be turned away for not having the right papers. The mayor finished his speech. When they called my name, the crowd went wild. I walked up to the podium. That microphone felt heavier than any legal paper I'd ever had to sign. I looked out at the huge crowd, and there they were near the back, hiding behind a column. Robert, Patricia, and Jessica. Dad's old navy coat looked way too big for him. Mom was clutching a paper coffee cup like her life depended on it. Jessica had cut her hair short. She looked small without all her designer clothes to hide behind. I let it get quiet for 3 whole seconds. 1 year ago tonight, I started, my voice completely steady. I was thrown out of my home with 1 suitcase and nowhere to go. That night, I learned exactly how it feels when the people who are supposed to catch you are the ones who drop you. A murmur went through the crowd. The cameras zoomed in. But I learned something else out there on a freezing park bench. Real family isn't about blood. Real family is the stranger who decides to see you when you feel invisible. Real family is the hand that helps you up when you have absolutely nothing to give back. I turned and pointed to the building. This is second home. 200 families will never have to sleep in their cars again because the rent went up. Kids will never do homework in a back seat because the power was shut off. And every single person who walks through those doors will hear the one thing I needed to hear that Christmas Eve. You are not disposable. You are not alone. You are home. The applause started, and then it was just a roar. People were on their feet. Their phones were up like a wave of light. I waited for it to get as loud as it could. Then I spoke again, softer this time. All the microphones leaned in to catch it. Tonight we open these doors for every person who was ever told they don't belong, especially for those who heard it from the very people who were supposed to love them the most. I looked right at them, the three of them standing in the back. My dad's shoulders were shaking. My mom covered her mouth with her hand. Jessica just stared at the ground. I didn't smile. I didn't glare. I just held their eyes for a second longer than was comfortable. Then I stepped away from the podium. The governor cut the ribbon. The band started to play. Little kids ran up with flowers. Reporters were shouting questions, but I pretended I didn't hear them. I walked down the steps and the crowd just parted for me. I headed for the entrance. Robert tried to stop me. Emily. I just kept walking. Not fast, not slow, just forward. Mom reached out a hand, but it never touched me. Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came out. She shut it. And for the first time ever, she didn't say a thing. I walked right by them, just 2 feet away, and never stopped. The big redwood doors at second home just opened up for me as I got close. Warm light poured out onto the concrete. I stepped inside. The doors closed behind me with a soft click. It was over. I didn't look back. It wasn't 'cause I hated them. And it wasn't 'cause I had something to prove. It was because I finally got it. Forgiveness isn't about opening that door again so they can hurt you. Sometimes it's just about walking through a new door and keeping the old one shut for good. Inside, a little kid in a Spider-Man jacket pulled on my sleeve. "Are you the lady that built this place?" he asked. I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "I'm one of them," I said. He held out a dandelion he'd picked from the courtyard. "For you," he lied, "'cause you gave us a home." I took the flower, and for the first time in a long, long time, I really smiled. Outside, the party was still going on.